Hello everyone, my name is Don, the movie reviewer, and today we're going to be talking about Queen and Slim. This movie starts off with our two main actors, Daniel Kaluuya, who plays the character of Slim, and Jodie Turner-Smith, who plays the character of Queen. From the very beginning of this movie, the director captures these two main characters in a moment. And it's an interesting moment from a visual perspective because not only do the actors portray these characters that they're playing in a realistic way, but the director has this very nice moment where there's no music playing, you're just watching these two characters, they don't know each other. So as these two characters are getting to know each other for the first time, we, the audience, are in their position like we're going on this first date with them. So the actors do a great job, but the director really captures the moment in a unique way that sells this story that I'm being told. So when we first meet Daniel Kaluuya's Slim character, he is a God-fearing man. Slim is he's a pushover. He's a coward. You could say he's not very manly. And the Queen character, she is more of a take charge kind of person, because then there's a moment where they get their food from their waiter and Queen mentions to Slim that, hey, didn't you order a specific kind of eggs? And Slim says, it doesn't matter, it's all good. So he's not standing up for himself. And she's like, you need to stand up, you need to say something. But he's like, it's all good, doesn't matter. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's just eggs, it doesn't matter. But, as she says, people who are paid to do a job should do the jobs that they're being paid for. And you did order these kind of eggs. So it's like, that's terrible customer service. So they made a mistake. Someone made a mistake and then they don't care to correct it. And then you just let it go. So it's like, but it's just eggs, so who cares? But at the same time, it illustrates who Slim is as a character and who Queen is as a character. And they are polar opposites. So there's these little moments of character development with Slim, where at first he starts off like a pushover, then he has the incident with the officer where Queen takes charge of the situation more than he does, but then as things progress, he starts to change and he is kind of fed up with her bossing him around and people pushing him over and stuff. So he as the movie progresses, he starts to take charge of the situation a lot more. So there is character progression with the Slim character. With the Queen character, she has that turning point where she says, like, there's a scene where they're going to go dancing, and at first she says, I wasn't going to give you a second date, but now that they're in this situation, they have no choice but to stick together. And as the movie progresses, they start to fall for each other because of the situation that they're in. And, as the movie goes along, they're just caught up in different scenarios. There's just situation after situation after situation. But the scenarios just kept happening. It's like one scenario after another. The highlight of the scenarios for me was when we meet Bokeem Woodbine, who plays Queen's uncle. I love him. Bokeem Woodbine gives a very funny, charismatic performance, gives us more illustration about the Queen character, who she is, her relationship with him, that he killed her mother because, typical family drama. He wanted the house and mom didn't want to sell it and he pushed her over the stairs, she cracked her head open. So we get a little backstory with that. That was the highlight of the movie for me. But the rest of the situations in the movie, like, it was just like, okay, we go here, we go there, we meet someone, something happens, and we move along. And that just kind of felt played out to me during like a certain point. I did enjoy the sequence where they meet the sheriff. That was like nail biting. Like, what are they gonna do? I don't think they should have left him in the trunk though, because what if he can't breathe? What if he suffocates? They could have just like taken his weapon and left him on the side of the road and then drove away. I thought the building of like, our car broke down, we need to flag this person down. If they find out it's the sheriff and then they're acting all suspicious and the sheriff is just a genuine guy who wants to help them, but then he gets the call on the radio and then they pull a gun on the sheriff. I was like, where is this gonna go? and it was intense and nail biting. My heart was pounding. Like this is interesting. The situation is interesting, but the conclusion to it, I was just like kind of, and then situations just keep happening, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of bored with this. Things just keep situation.
Uncle Earl is a man who is haunted by his time in the service and other things. He's also very industrious, hardworking, a little sinister, and he's got a great sense of humor.
So there's some nice moments in there, but then it just feels a little bit too stretched out to where it's like, okay, these situations just keep happening. It's kind of boring. But then there is another moment where this movie does take a very firm political approach about police brutality when they have this moment where there's this kid who goes to this protest, and then officers throw tear gas to break up the protest, and then the black officer confronts the boy, and the boy pulls a gun out on the black officer when the black officer was like trying to help him, and then the black boy ends up shooting the black officer in the face. And then I was like, okay, of course this black boy is gonna die because you just killed an officer in front of other police officers. So I was like, you're giving them reason to shoot you, and I don't know if that was to send a message to the audience. I don't really get it, but to me, it was like, okay, I understand it, because in reality, this movie's tackling reality. There are officers who are killing black people at a enormous rate, and it's an epidemic. You see it all the time on the news. It's everywhere in the media, and it's a big epidemic, right? And so this movie's pointing that out. But then I feel like maybe it's a little bit aggressive. Like these cop movies about police brutality, I keep seeing them, and we never get to see the perspectives from the officers, which I guess, that's not really important because that's not what the story's about. But at the same time, like I said, the way the situation escalates in here just feels a bit unrealistic, where he's like, are you done yet? Officer gets an attitude. He says, well, it's cold. Then he pulls out a gun for no reason. Then he shoots Queen. It's just kind of like, maybe it happens in real life. I don't know. But to me, it's just like, we can find better ways to construct this narrative of officers killing unarmed black people, and just try to make it like a universal thing where we can understand both sides. But that's not what the movie's about. It's called Queen and Slim, and we needed the situation to happen to keep the story going in a certain direction, and to hit home a certain message about, yes, Black Lives Matter, and police are wrong and mistreating black people. So I get that, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, you're driving this narrative, you're telling the stories of these characters, but are you trying to focus more on the political agenda, or are you focusing more on the characters? And it juggles and balances both. But then I feel like it focused too much on the political narrative, and it kind of diminishes the character narrative. Like I said, Danny Kaluuya gets his transformation. Queen has a slight transformation. She has a reveal where she meets her uncle and confesses to Slim about that situation, and she falls for Slim. But she doesn't really change as a character. There isn't, to me, I didn't really notice any progression with her except falling in love with him. And, so I feel like the character details were sacrificed in exchange for the political message. And I feel like the story kind of suffered for that. Because then, like I said, with Slim's father, we don't get any illustration with that. We don't get any illustration as to why Slim is a religious person. But I feel like the movie's kind of ambiguous, maybe, where like the scene he tells Queen a story about where the babies come from, and he asked all these different people, and they had all many different answers. And he believes in God. Did he get it from his father? Did he just decide to be that way? But then if he decided to be that way and he's really firm in it, it's like he kind of has these wishy-washy moments in the movie where it's like, okay, are you really a believer in that, or are you not? Or like, I'm confused, but he's caught up in the moment. So it's like, I don't really know who these characters are. They're a bit of a mystery. And so when we have these layers of where we peel back the emotional layers as to who they are, it just doesn't feel powerful enough to me. Maybe him believing in God wasn't necessarily a choice for him. It was something that was given to him from his father. But then I don't feel like there's much of a connection with him and his father in the movie. Like there's one scene where he calls his dad on a landline, and then you hear his dad on the other end, and he's like talking to him about the situation, and he ends the call with "I love you," and then the phone hangs up, and you think, oh, his dad is disowning him. But then they go to a scene where the dad is with the police, and then the dad's like, I'm not going to help you turn my son in and all that stuff. And then the officer's like, you're going to jail. So we get that little tiny bit of illustration. So then at the end of this movie, that's when it really hits home. Because it's like a Bonnie and Clyde scenario, right? Where you got these two characters that ride or die for each other, where at the beginning she wanted nothing to do with him, but I guess he kind of liked her. And then she finally comes around, and they went through their journey, and the end point, you think they're going to make it home. They're going to make it and get on the plane and go to Cuba or wherever they wanted to go. But nope, the police show up and they get caught. And then at that moment, Queen is like, I want to be your legacy. And then earlier in the movie, when he was talking to her about babies and telling her a story, he's like, babies come from having sex, and they just had sex without protection. So I was like, okay, this is how the movie's gonna end. The police are gonna surround them, and she got shot in the shoulder, right? I'm thinking, okay, she just got shot in the shoulder, she's not really dead, she just collapsed and passed out. But when she got shot, I flinched because I didn't see that coming. It's very intense. I was engaged, in it. And then she got shot, and then Slim, he's all like just saddened about that. She's dead. And I teared up. I cried, because I did at that moment like feel their relationship. I felt that bond. And then he lifts her up, and then he's walking. I'm like, are they gonna gun him down? And then they gun him down. I'm like, okay, he's clearly dead. Clearly. But she's not dead though. She just got shot in the shoulder, and she just collapsed and passed out. Because I was like, okay, she had sex with him, and they just mentioned that babies come from having sex. They didn't use protection, so he's dead. She just had a flesh wound, so he learned that she gave birth to his baby in prison, and then that's his legacy. I'm pretty sure if she was still alive, she would have been locked up for life. He's dead, and the baby's born. They're probably going to foster care, and who knows where the legacy of the baby, where it's going to end up. But at least their legacy lives on. That's how I thought it was going to end. It's like, here's the new generation of, Queen and Slim, the baby that they created. That's how I thought it was going to end, kind of on like, yeah, Queen and Slim, their lives, like, are fucked up because one of them is dead, one of them is incarcerated, for life, while their baby, is out there in the world, and it kind of gives Queen and Slim another chance. That's how I thought it was going to end, kind of on a downer, but also a happy note. But they didn't go in that direction. It was like they both died. They have the Bonnie and Clyde, exiting this lifestyle, and then they have a funeral and the movie's over. And I was kind of disappointed with that. I mean, it was sad. I cried. It was emotional that they both died. I felt both of their characters' connections by the end. But it's still kind of disappointing because, like I said, they just go through these situations and scenarios in the movie, and I don't feel like they're getting closer together except in a few of those moments. Like, well, even though there's a lot good going for it, and by the end it makes me cry and feel for these two characters. But at the same time, I just wish there was more development with these characters in details about why did Daniel Kaluuya become a church person, right? What made him go in that direction? How is his relationship with his family, right? Like, I really think that the movie at the beginning should have just illustrated these two characters in their own personal lives, so we as an audience can get to know them and understand them. And then when they finally come together at the diner, we know who they are already, and then know that their personalities won't match off the jump, instead of like just throwing us in there and putting us in the perspective of these characters, where it's like, he doesn't know her, she doesn't know him, they're getting to know each other as well as we are, which is cool, and it was a great scene, but I just wish there was more detail with these characters and who they were as people going forward, instead of all of that stuff slowly being revealed as the movie progressed in its narrative. The directing in here from Melina Matsoukas is mwah. It is exceptional directing, and if it is shot on film, I love it because it has that grain in there, so it feels like reality. And I love reality-based movies because sometimes
life sucks, and then you die.
And that's the way life is. Life isn't all butterflies and rainbows and bees and all that kind of stuff. Life is gritty and dark sometimes, and I like that approach that the director took with this movie, along with the performances from Daniel Kaluuya and Jodie Turner-Smith. They played really great characters here. I do wish that we did get more character details and description about them on their backstory in order to flesh their characters out more. I don't feel like there was enough there to really illustrate who these characters were in a deeper way. But, like I said, as the narrative progresses, they peel certain layers of the characters back. Like with Daniel Kaluuya, like I said, is Slim. He's a pushover, but as the story progresses, he starts to take charge a lot more. Whereas with Jodie Turner-Smith, she takes charge, but then she starts to learn to let Slim take charge of the situation. And then she falls in love with him when at first she didn't really like him. So there's a bit of progression there, but I don't feel like there is enough. I feel like that story depth that we could have got with these characters is in exchange for the political message, which does need to be said. But at the same time, I would really appreciate if a movie showed us both sides and and just wasn't all one-sided. Because yes, it is an epidemic of police officers killing unarmed black people. But at the same time, we're not going to get anything done if we point the finger at the group and not try to understand each other. I feel like we definitely need to have an understanding of where each person's point of view comes from. And I feel like a lot of these movies about police brutality doesn't give us the point of view of the officer. It's just made for the officers to look like evil people and us black people to look like, we were in the right situation for doing what we did. We did what we did because we felt like it was right. But then you never know in reality, But I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was great. I liked the performances. I liked the directing. I liked the progression of the story, but there were some moments where I was like, okay, there's situation after situation after situation. It's becoming kind of stale now, but there were a few key moments like the Blue King Woodbine scene at his house. That all that stuff was great. The diner scene at the beginning was great. The police officer confrontation, the confrontation with the sheriff was great. The dancing sequence on the floor, when they're dancing and the director gets in there and you can see the sweat on Jodie Turner-Smith's forehead. All that stuff was great. The ending was very sad, and how it ended on a downer, on a sad note. I just have a passion for gritty, dark, sad ending kind of movies. Anyways, that's all I have to say. So as always, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.